What's going on here? You take a look at a bunny who was a very clean looking bunny, and suddenly you start to notice staining under the mouth like this. You might be wondering what's going on. Now this is something that frequently happens in older rabbits, and you can see what a mess she is underneath. This started rather abruptly, and what it means is that even though she's eating, it's most likely a tooth problem. I took a look at her incisors, and they look fine, and they're in alignment. But bunnies have another set of teeth that's far back in their throat area, way back here. And you can't see those teeth by opening their mouth. You would have to have a scope with a light on it to see those teeth. Those are their molars. So what we have here is drooling. She's drooling, and the hay juices and the greens juices from her mouth mixed with her saliva are coming out as she drools and staining her chin. Now, you need to be prepared for something like this, because most older rabbits are going to get a problem like this. Okay, the thing you need to do is to get your bunny to the vet, and you need to have them take a look at those molars. Hello, Norm. Norm's getting into the picture too. Hello, Norman. Now it's important to have things for your rabbits to chew. Here's an old oatmeal container, and we have apple branches that they've pretty much debarked. And these kind of things keep the front incisors worn down, in addition with eating hay. But they don't do much for the molars. As your bunny gets older, the molars are going to keep growing in strange directions, and pretty soon they're starting to cut into the bunny's mouth, into their inner cheek area. So we have Zuzu, and she has to go to the vet, and they have to take a look at those molars and see if that's the problem. I'm pretty much 100% sure that's the problem. Okay, I thought I'd show you on Aggie, since Zuzu's not feeling well. Aggie has her own medical troubles. She has a immune system that doesn't work correctly, and if you've seen the other videos, it's an ongoing thing, keeping the bacteria somewhat under control. They've grown so much all her life in her nasal passages and sinuses that the bone is actually put on extra layers, and the sinuses are all misshapen inside. We try to manage it with a herb. She gets twice a day, And we also try to manage it. When needed, she gets medications. Okay, but let's take a look at her teeth. A lot of people, they don't know that bunnies have more than the incisors. Okay. Let's take a look at her teeth. So, okay, bunnies have the incisors, the upper incisors, lower incisors, and they should meet and match up perfectly so that they rub against each other and they wear down. People don't realize, though, that beyond the incisors, and you cannot see by looking at your bunny like this, but far back in their mouth, way back here, they have molars. But a bunny's molars are on angles. So on one side they're going to be on an angle like this, and the other side they're going to be on an angle like this. Now, in most rabbits, as they get older, they might start having trouble with those molars. The molars keep growing. They don't get worn down. They're not aligned perfectly right. Now let's remember, in the wild, if a bunny lives to be 2 or 3 years old, they're a very old rabbit. So in the wild rabbits, they don't have a chance for molars to have overgrowth. The bunny gets killed off long before then. But in our pet bunnies, and now when you spay and neuter your bunny, they can live 8, 9, 11, or 12 years even. But that brings on other problems, because just like people that live longer nowadays than they used to do 200 years ago, there's health problems that crop up when your bunny is an old senior citizen bunny. So it's very important as your bunny gets older, and I would say any bunny that's over 5 years old should get a checkup at the vet. When your bunny reaches about 5 years old, get them in for a checkup so they can check the teeth, especially. Your bunny gets to be 8 years old, start watching for problems after the age of 5. You know, by the time they're 8, they're very senior rabbits, and you really need to keep a close eye on them to make sure they're behaving correctly. But let's remember, these bunnies are prey animals, and they will hide their pain and their sickness from you. So you look for little things like they're losing a little bit of weight, they're not eating as much, you know, they're making strange body movements. Save your money and have enough money to take care of your pets, and that goes for any pet. And I say this to people because they think like the investment in a pet is like buying the pet. That's the least of the investment in most cases, is buying the pet. You need to be prepared for all the expenses for health care for your pet. And if you're not going to do it, then you have to question, why are you even having a pet? Because you're the responsible person. This animal is completely dependent on you. So you have to be ready and willing to take good care of it, and that means getting your animal to a vet when something doesn't look right. Don't wait, because it can be very, very painful for these prey animals. And they're not going to show it, but they're in severe pain. Okay, so here's Aggie. I'm going to put her back for now. Thank you for showing your teeth, Aggie. Aggie's teeth are okay because she was in last year and they had to look at her molars. She's got a lot of other problems, but so far her teeth have been pretty good. Okay, here's some signs that your rabbit has problems with overgrown molars. One of the first signs you're going to see is this under chin staining. Okay, second thing you might see is staining on their hindquarters where they didn't have staining before. And the reason for this is because they're in pain and they're not going to groom themselves because they're feeling pain. They're not going to bend around. When they get those molars that are overgrown, it gives them a lot of pain in the cervical area here on their neck, and they don't like bending their neck around. Another way you can tell your bunny might have a molar problem is, let me just adjust this here, if you touch them here, right behind their neck, and they give a twinge, it's hurting them painfully right there to touch them even on their neck. Okay, now you're seeing her here. She already was to the vet. Now rabbits have to chew or their incisors keep growing. Their teeth aren't like our teeth. Their teeth will just keep growing and the incisors will start to curl around and can starve them to death because they won't be able to eat, and it's very painful. And they can even grow far enough where they start to pierce the roof of their mouth. Now this generally happens in the older bunnies, but it could happen in a younger bunny depending on their genetics and how their teeth are aligned. But what you can't see are the molars, which are way back here, and see how she's twinging a little? The molars are way in the back here, and a veterinarian needs to look at your bunny. Now, when you get a rabbit, you should make sure that right away, before they need any medical care, you call around, find a vet who knows a lot about rabbits. Some vets will see rabbits, but they really don't know too much about them. And one of the questions you want to ask is, does this vet have the ability to anesthetize the bunny and grind down molars if the molars become overgrown? Okay, so we go to an exotic vet. It's far away, but that's where I go for something like that. There's a vet near to us that also sees rabbits, and that vet I've used for spaying and neutering and for anything like if you had a little eye infection or respiratory infection or something like that. But Zuzu here, she needs a vet that can do these procedures such as grinding down the molars. It's not a long procedure, but they do have to put them under an anesthetic. Okay, while she was there, they also discovered that her flop ear, she has one ear that's a flop ear here that flops down. And if you have a bunny with floppy ears, like lop rabbits, they tend to get ear infections in those ears. So if you have a lop rabbit or a rabbit with one ear that flops down, make sure you take them to the vet maybe every couple years for a checkup so they can take a look down in that ear, because it doesn't get the air to it and it doesn't drain the same way that a regular bunny ear would drain. So Zuzu has a buildup in that ear, but they couldn't clean it out because even when she was under the anesthetic, when they tried to clean it, she was actually jerking around because she could feel the pain even though she was under a gas anesthetic and had been knocked out so that they could grind her molars. And she's already feeling better. But she had molars that were growing, and they were growing overgrowth into her cheek on the inside. And this is why it's very, very important when you have a rabbit, you have to have an emergency fund for vet bills. And I've said this before, and I sound preachy, but pretty much anybody can have an emergency fund. You put away $5 or $10 a week. You can do it. You can do it because you can cut out some of the crap that you don't need, like junk food, coffee at a place that sells coffee, fast food. Stay out of the fast food restaurants for a few times, and you'll come up with that $5 or $10 really quickly. Put it away, don't use it, keep it for a vet emergency. Because they're not going to show it that they're in severe pain, because these are prey animals, and in the wild, a prey animal that shows it's feeling sick, that's the one that a predator is going to go after first. So even though these are domestic rabbits, they have it in their genetics. They do not show pain. They try not to show pain. But they might sit. They might be losing a little weight. They might not be eating the hay like they used to, because it's very painful. You know, with every time she takes a bite of hay and moves her mouth, these molars were eating into her inner cheeks and they can cause abscesses, they can cause infections, and of course it's very painful if you could imagine a tooth in your own mouth that was growing into your cheek. So you really need to have an emergency fund. This isn't a really expensive procedure, but find a vet beforehand, because our rabbits are living longer now because they're spayed and neutered. Give them a good life. Watch out for things like this. And you know, if you can take your bunny to the vet every year for a checkup, that's really a good thing. We have so many bunnies and animals, we can't afford to be taking the animals every single year for a checkup. But as soon as I saw this thing with the staining, I knew something was wrong with her teeth. And it can happen quite quickly. All of a sudden, you know, you notice that the staining appears, and it's because she's a white rabbit also. It's very noticeable. But if you have a rabbit that's a darker color, you're going to have to keep an eye on that to make sure they're not getting any staining under their chin. There shouldn't be any staining under a bunny's chin. If there is, it means they're drooling, and that means they got some very painful stuff going on in their mouth. But she still does have that ear problem with her lop ear. There could be an infection down in there, and they want to clean that ear out, but they want to wait and see, you know, if she feels better before they do it. And everybody take a look at your way of living. Get that $5 or $10 a week, put it away and don't touch it. Put it in the bank, put it somewhere. Have it ready for any vet emergencies. Does that make sense? Remember, bunnies and other animals such as guinea pigs, birds, they're prey animals. That means they don't want to show you that they're feeling sick, because it's in their genetics that that's something that shows a predator, that they're easy to catch. So you have to be really extra aware when you have pets that are the prey animals. Your cats and dogs, they'll show the pain a little more. You know, they might cry or whine, and you know something's wrong. But these guys are not going to act much differently unless you're really observant.